Well. Clemson Tiger fans, college football fans, welcome back to another episode of the All In Show right here on the Voice of College Football Clemson channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I am, as always, your host, Tiger Paul Craven. Jordan Bowman will not be joining us tonight. Unfortunately, he had some things come up, but the show must go on. And we will be here tonight talking Clemson football, college football, and everything in between. I had Uncle Lou scheduled for the show tonight, but it looks like he's not going to be able to make it as well. So apologies to you guys for that announcement. A little bit of change last minute in the show tonight, but do not worry. I will be right here with you guys to chop it up with you all about Clemson football and college football. We got a few things to talk about tonight, some things in the news, some things in the media. The 247 Composite team talent rankings came out. We'll talk about that tonight. We'll talk a little bit Georgia. That's what we were going to mainly talk about on the show tonight, kind of preview Georgia. What have they been doing this offseason? How has their offseason gone? What are some players that they lost to the NFL draft last season, and how do they look heading into the 2024 season? And we were going to get some of Uncle Lou's insight on that. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen, but I did do some of my research myself, and I'll be giving some of that stuff out tonight on the show. But before we get into all that, if you are not subscribed to the channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel, helps us grow, and that's what we're trying to do. On the road to 6,000 subscribers, crossed 5,000 not too long ago, so on the grind to 6,000. Appreciate your guys' help with that. Also, this is a live video, so if you can hit that like button, helps us out. And the YouTube algorithm brings some more people in, whether that be Clemson fans or just college football fans in general. Everyone is welcome here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football. So, as always, we got the Super Chat feature available for you guys. So be sure to hit that Super Chat feature if you want to support what we do here on Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football, and more importantly, the All-In Show that we do here every Friday, 5:30 p.m. And without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and get into the show tonight. Week 0 is literally tomorrow. We finally get to see college football, folks. We have been in the desert. We've been roaming the barren desert of no college football games for months and months and months. And finally, we're going to turn the page to week 0 of college football. And we are actually going to have college football games, which is so exciting, in my opinion. And I'm sure you guys are excited as well. Typically, the week 0 games are not the most exciting matchups, although I think the Georgia Tech, Florida State matchup is a little exciting. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later. Before we start the show tonight, before we get into some of the planned topics that I had for the show tonight, I'm going to give a shout out to the comment section, because you guys are always showing up. You're always here. You're always driving the content at the end of the show for us and asking amazing questions. So shout out to the comment section. We got Jackson Johnson in here. Says, "What's up, Tiger Nation?" He is always plugging all the stuff that we need for the Voice of College Football umbrella of channels and all the things that we need him to do. So thank you so much, Jackson Johnson, for that. Really do appreciate it. And speaking of that, make sure you guys are shopping and using the Amazon link. Excuse me. If any of you guys shop on Amazon, which I'm sure much of you do, just simply that link you see on the screen right there. It's also in the description of this video and pretty much every single video on this channel, and all the videos on the Voice of College Football umbrella of channels. Just simply copy and paste that before you finalize your purchase on Amazon, and the channel gets a little kickback and support from that, and it doesn't cost you any extra money. Just simply a copy and paste on your part. So be sure to do that. We will also be adding a quick little announcement to the channel. We will also be adding some membership tier levels. So help me out in the comment section tonight. We're going to provide probably 3 different tiers for the members. So help me out tonight with some catchy things that you guys would like us to name. Those different tiers, some Clemson, obviously, centric names, All In, Howard's Rock, whatever you guys come up with, put some in the comment section tonight, and we may use some of those for the upcoming member subscriptions that we're going to do to the channel as well. So that's in the works as well. Hope you guys are excited about that. Moose is in here, one of our resident Michigan fans. It says, "Go Blue." Thank you for showing up, Moose. Really do appreciate it. Jackson Johnson says, "Roll Tide." We'll forgive you for that, Jackson Johnson, because of all the great work that you do here on this channel and all the Voice of College Football channels. Dean Wilson is in here, says, "Let's go Tigers." Absolutely, man. I cannot wait for kickoff. We have another week to wait before we see our Tigers, but week 0 is tomorrow, so we do not have to wait any longer for college football to get kicked off. Apologies to guys tonight if I have to mute my mic a couple times. Still got this nagging cough. As you guys know, I was sick for a couple weeks there, and this nagging cough just won't go away. But I think I'm nearing the end of it. At least I hope so. Second, what Jackson Johnson said, absolutely. Let's get this to 600 or 6,000 subscribers. Orange Blooded in the house. Thank you for joining us tonight. Jay, always in here, always one of the ones commenting. Thank you for being in here. Isaac Smith is in here. We got our buddy John Sarin in here, one of our moderators in here. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate you, man. These Fridays are getting tough during the summer. Yeah. We're going to evaluate the Friday show and possibly moving that. So that's a conversation. We'll make announcements if anything changes, just due to it being so close to Saturday's games. May get a little bit more traction if it's earlier in the week. So that's something that we're talking about and thinking about. So just so you guys know some of the behind the scenes stuff that's going on. Lots of changes around here. Trying to improve the channel, trying to gain traction and all of that stuff. Dean Wilson in here. Thank you so much for showing up. Look out, Dog Nation. We are coming. Absolutely. 1 week away from kickoff of the Clemson Georgia game, and I could not be more excited. Be sure to check out Mark Rogers' personal Twitter account or X account, Mark_Psalm23. Be sure to check that out, guys. Wheelman, love from Florida. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you for showing up tonight. Excuse me. Dogs Rolling Loud. Thank you for showing up. Resident Georgia fan. Appreciate that. Yeah, I forgive you, Jackson Johnson. No worries. Georgia Tech upsets FSU. We will get into that shortly. So thank you, guys. We got 23 people in the live chat right now. You guys keep commenting. You guys know once I get through this plan portion, I'll turn it over to you guys. We'll answer some questions. Probably be a little bit of a shorter show tonight, just because we kind of, I had to kind of throw this together last minute. The plans that we had for tonight's show just did not work out, unfortunately. But I will still provide as best product as I can for you guys tonight. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the week 0 games tonight. I did want to talk a little bit about week 0 just because week 0 tends to be kind of a week of college football that everyone's juiced up and excited about, not necessarily about the matchups, but just because we've gone so long without college football. We haven't seen a college football game since January. We're so juiced up and we're so ready for college football to start. I'm the exact same way. And we're going to go through some of these matchups that are going to happen in week 0 and kind of talk about them a little bit. Most notably, obviously, we'll start with the Florida State Georgia Tech game. Obviously, that's happening over in Dublin, Ireland. I think Georgia Tech has some special helmets they're wearing with a Celtic knot in it and all that kind of stuff, juicing it up for the fans over there and the people over there. So that's exciting. But just talking about the line on that game, the spread is obviously FSU is minus 10.5, so 10.5 point favorites for FSU. The total on that game is 55.5 points. So predicting that Florida State will win somewhat comfortably in that game. Now, I know Orange Blooded in here predicted a outright Georgia Tech upset. You guys tell me what do you guys think about the Georgia Tech FSU game? Do you guys got Georgia Tech winning straight up, or do you have FSU winning that game? So go ahead and put that in the chat. I personally think it's going to be closer than the 10.5. So if I was betting this game, I would take Georgia Tech plus the 10.5 points. But I do think Florida State probably gets the job done. Florida State's just, a little bit more talented than Georgia Tech. I think they probably get the job done. They can probably do it without having to lean on DJ Uiagalelei too terribly much. Again, we all know kind of the struggles that he had at Clemson. Obviously went over to Oregon State, had a decent season last year with Oregon State, and then transferred down to Florida State. I mean, let's just be honest. DJ Uiagalelei was not their first choice. They wanted Cam Ward. Obviously, he went to Miami. DJ Uiagalelei ends up at Florida State. We'll see what Mike Norvell can do with DJ, and we won't have to wait too much longer because this is a 12 o'clock kickoff. Going to be aired on ESPN. So tomorrow at noon, we get to see this game in all its glory. I'm going to go ahead and say that Georgia Tech's going to keep it much closer than that 10.5 point total favorite that Florida State is right now. I don't know that I go full upset, although I think it would be amazing and hilarious to see that happen. I'm not so confident in as to say Georgia Tech's going to go in there and get the upset, but I do think they keep it a little bit closer. I see a couple people in here predicting an upset. Jackson Johnson says FSU 35, Georgia Tech 21. Excuse me. Dean Wilson says upset, Georgia Tech wins 28-25. Again, I wouldn't mind seeing it. It would not hurt my feelings at all. John Sari says, how much improvement has Georgia Tech made on defense? That will be the difference. Yeah, absolutely. And therein lies the question. And we talked about it last show, all the questions for Clemson heading into the 2024 season. And that's one of the big questions for Georgia Tech heading into this season is how improved is their defense going to be? And you really don't know until the ball gets kicked off. You can talk about everything that happened over the summer and the improvements that various players made. You can talk about how good fall camp was and, all this stuff. And we talked about this last week with Clemson. But really until the ball's kicked off and you see it up close and personal against another team with a very talented roster, you have no idea how your guys are going to perform. And that's the big question for Georgia Tech. So we'll see if they can answer that in the positive for them come tomorrow at noon. TBP Sports says DJ is mid. I agree. Nothing against DJ. I don't dislike DJ in any way, but I would agree. Certainly, you have to be, if you're being honest with yourself as a Florida State fan, it's a downgraded quarterback. You're also downgrading at the wide receiver position. So to think that your offense will be as explosive and stay on schedule and be as smooth as it was last season, I don't think that's a probable thing that's going to happen. There's obviously going to probably be some regression there. Probably going to have to lean on that defense a little bit more than they had to last season when you had, all those big names on the offensive side of the ball. And I know they bring in transfers and they got guys and they got replacements, but again, he's not throwing the ball to Johnny Wilson. He's not throwing the ball to Keon Coleman. He's not throwing the ball to these elite wide receivers that Jordan Travis was last season. And also, he's not a Jordan Travis level quarterback. I think Jordan Travis was a much better quarterback than DJ Uiagalelei is. And I'm not throwing shade Florida State's way or even DJ's way. It's just, if you look at them two and the product that they put on the field so far, and you have to assume that, I mean, are you really going to bank on DJ looking massively different than he did at Clemson and Oregon State? Because I think he looked pretty similar at both universities. Although his numbers were better at Oregon State, he looked similar to how he looked at Clemson, in my opinion. So to think that he's going to suddenly get into this Florida State offense and suddenly become this completely different quarterback, I don't think is a probable thing that's going to happen. I think he's going to be a similar quarterback to what he was at Clemson, a similar quarterback to what he was at Oregon State. Again, Mike Norvell may be able to scheme it up and kind of hide some of his weaknesses and highlight some of his strengths and scheme guys open and things like that. Again, that remains to be seen. We'll see what Mike Norvell is able to do with a quarterback like DJ Uiagalelei. So that'll be interesting. I'll be glued to the TV at 12 noon. Excuse me, guys. I'm so sorry. Watching that game and hope Georgia Tech can make it a game. Hope it's an exciting game. Hoping it's not a blowout and not a typical week 0 kind of flop game that we tend to get in a lot of these week 0 matchups. But I'm excited to see it. Again, Florida State, 10.5-point favorite. I'll go Georgia Tech plus 10.5. I will go Florida State to win the game. And they'll start out 1-0. Georgia Tech will start out 0-1, and then we'll be on to week 1. But a couple other matchups in week 0. You got 3 other games being played. One of them is an ACC team. SMU plays Nevada. They play at 8 p.m. On CBS. SMU is a 27-point favorite over Nevada. So, again, shaping up to be a blowout. Obviously, take SMU to win that game. 27 points to me, regardless of the opponent, is a lot of points. So I will take Nevada plus 27, but I'll take SMU to win the game. Again, 27 points is just a lot of points to me, especially in a week 0 game, first game of the season. You kind of working some kinks out. It's your first real live action. I mean, I know you go live and fall camp at times, but I mean, it's nothing like a real game when the lights are on and the fans are there and the TV cameras are there, and you know it's a true opponent that has schemed you up and game planned against you and things like that. So Jackson Johnson said SMU is going to give Nevada a spanking. I have no doubts, but again, to me, 27 points, that's a lot of points in a first game of the season type setting. So no doubt they can probably do it, but that's just a lot of points to take if you were betting the game. So that's my thoughts there. A couple more games in week 0. We get a 4:00 game, Montana State, New Mexico. Again, I'm not going to pretend to know very much about any of those schools. Montana State is a 13.5-point favorite, 54.5 point total on that game, played at 4:00 on FS1. Again, not the most exciting matchup, typical week 0 matchup, but again, it's college football. It's finally back. We've been waiting for months and months and months, so probably end up watching the game. I'm going to watch every single game I possibly can tomorrow because that's just what I do at college football season. It's kind of, you sit there and you watch as many games as you possibly can until you got to go to sleep and recover. So that's what I'll be doing tomorrow. 13.5. I'll go Montana State. Again, I don't know anything about those two schools. I'm not going to pretend like I've done any research on them. And then to round out the day at 11:59 p.m. So any of you night owls out there, if you find yourself up at midnight and you can't sleep, you got a college football game to watch tomorrow, and that's Delaware State versus Hawaii. 11:59 p.m. kickoff. Hawaii is a 40.5-point favorite. That is ridiculous. That is a crazy point total. And the total points on the game is only 55.5 points. So apparently Delaware State's not going to score anything, and Hawaii's going to completely blow their doors off. That's what ESPN says as far as the spread and the betting totals. So again, we'll see. I'm sure you guys are super excited about week one. Couple people in here predicting a Georgia Tech upset against Florida in Dublin, Ireland. It would be absolutely electric and exciting to see. Not that I'm hating on Florida State, but it would just be funny to get that big of an upset in a week 0 game, especially seeing how it's being played over across the pond, if you will, in Dublin, Ireland. That would certainly be a very bad start to the Florida State season and a very good start to the Clemson season. Orange Blooded said it might be Clemson versus SMU in the ACC championship game. Hey, that's a possibility. It could happen. It could shape up that way. Again, we will see. Think about how big of an accomplishment that would be for SMU. Year one in the ACC, you end up in the ACC championship game. Whether you win or lose, that's huge year one, especially for a program like SMU and all the stuff they've been through in the past. Jackson Johnson says Montana State's head coach was a former staff member at Wyoming and North Dakota State under Craig Bowl. Bitron's record is 32-9. Sounds like he needs to be in the FBS. Sounds like he might be in the FBS shortly, Jackson Johnson. Might not be too long for him. Somebody will come get him for sure. That's how it always happens. All right, guys, that's the week 0 games. We got 30 people in the live chat right now. Thank you so much for being in here. Make sure you guys hit that like button while you're in here. Super chat features available if you want to support what we do here at the All In Show. Again, if you're showing up and you missed my announcements earlier, the plans we had for the show kind of fell through. Uncle Lou couldn't make it. Jordan Bowman couldn't make it tonight. So you guys are stuck with me, okay? But again, I'm going to provide you guys the best product I possibly can tonight, and we're going to keep it moving. As we start talking our next subject. So we're going to turn the page to the 2024 Composite Team Talent Rankings. And this was published by 247 Sports. Came out earlier this week, I think. Excuse me. And Clemson happens to be a top 5 team in the talent composite rankings for the 2024, heading into the 2024 season. The only ACC in the top 10, Clemson. And they, as I mentioned before, they sit at 5. Number 1 is Alabama. Number 2, Georgia. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 4, Texas. Number 5, Clemson. Number 6, Oregon. Number 7, Texas A&M. Number 8, Oklahoma. Number 9, LSU. And Notre Dame rounds out the top 10 of the 2024 Team Talent Composite Rankings, according to 247 Sports. So they compile, obviously, everybody on the roster, 4 stars, 5 stars, and they rank it and they average it out based off of recruit or personnel that you have on your roster. So Clemson comes in at number 5. Average rating of 90.89. They got 7 5-stars on the roster, 45 4-stars, and 33 stars. Total points on that was 924.63. Good enough for 5th place. Again, the only ACC in the team in the top 10. The next highest ranked ACC team is Florida State. They're down at 13. They got 3 5-stars, 41 4-stars, 41 3-stars. Average rating of 89.63 on their players there. And then Miami is directly behind them at number 14. They have 5 5-stars, 34 4-stars, 43 3-stars for an average rating of 89.65. So their average rating is actually a little bit higher than Florida State's. But Florida State has more on the roster. They got 85 commits, Miami with the 82. So, again, that's the 247 Composite team talent rankings. So, are you guys surprised Clemson is still in the top 10? There's a big narrative out there that, Dabo Swinney's doing a huge disservice to Clemson and the talent's starting to slip. They don't have the personnel that they used to have because he refuses to evolve, if you will, to the new parameters of college football with the transfer portal, NIL, all that kind of stuff. But again, Clemson still sits today as the most talented program in the ACC if you just bear it down to these rankings right here. And they're up there at number 5. So again, like me and Jordan have said before, it's really been a lot that has gone into Clemson's kind of slide from where they were in 2018, the last time they won a national championship. Jay says, what sucks is what it says about the coaching and miscues last year. Absolutely. It highlights a lot of what we've talked about on this channel and what a lot of other people have talked about when it comes to Clemson and some of the coaching hires that were made that obviously didn't work out. And that's not an opinion that they didn't work out because they were fired. So clearly those hires didn't work out, and Dabo agreed with that because guess what? He's the one that fired them. It shows that there was a lack of coaching. There was a lack of development. There was a lack of utilizing the talent that is on the roster, because when you look at Clemson and the way that they have played the last 3 seasons, and then you look at this and they're a top 5 roster, when you stack them against all the teams in the rest of the country, that's a problem. And that says that the coaching was not getting it done. And I think Dabo has done some to kind of correct that. You talk about bringing on Matt Luke this year, bringing on Chris Rump. You hire Garrett Riley a year ago. Obviously, the first year of his offense did not go as planned. And I think a lot of that was just the coaching that had gone on before. And Garrett Riley comes in and he's teaching a very different system, and he's asking the offensive linemen to do a lot of things that they had never done before. And if you see the first part of Clemson's season, they were doing a lot of stuff that Garrett Riley's offense typically does. A lot of pulling of the offensive line, getting them out in space, doing things like that. And then you see as the season went on and Clemson's losses stacked up, when we went on that 5-game span at the end of the season where we rattled off those 5 wins, if you notice, starting with that Notre Dame game, Clemson went a lot. They went backwards. They went back to a lot of those zone concepts that those players were already comfortable with, right? So obviously, offensive line was a weak point last season. Well, you fire the coach, you bring in Matt Luke. You hope that he can come in and correct them. You hope that a guy like Matt Luke can come in and really revamp that offensive line and kind of get those guys bought in and kind of get those guys ready to operate within a system like Garrett Riley likes to operate in. You're right, Jay. It does highlight the miscues and talking about the miscues that happened last year with Clemson. It was really, I mean, it's really crazy from game 1 on. I mean, I've mentioned it on the show before, but Clemson didn't play a single game last season where we didn't turn the ball over. That is crazy. Not a single game did we play last season where we didn't turn the ball over. Luckily, our defense created a lot of turnovers, which kept us in a lot of games, which ultimately is the reason that we won as many games as we did, thankfully for the defense. But the offense, I mean, you think about that Florida State game. You're getting towards the end of the game. Clemson looks like they may pull off this win. And then what happens? A sack, fumble, touchdown the other way. We're going to overtime. We ultimately lose in overtime. I mean, it's just the catastrophic turnovers that happened on a consistent basis last year were mind-boggling. And that's something that we as Clemson fans right now, we have to hope that Dabo Swinney and the rest of that coaching staff has corrected, because it was detrimental. I mean, Dabo's talked about it. He talked about how many times we fumbled at basically the 1 yard line, first and goal, or goal to go at the 1 yard line, and fumbling the ball going into the end zone. It happened far too often last year, and it lost us games, and it stole momentum, and it hurt the defense. And the offense put the defense in so many precarious positions last year just due to their inability to hang on to the football. I mean, we couldn't even get to a punt last year. We're just handing the ball to the other team, and a lot of those turned into scores, pick sixes, scooping scores. It wasn't just a sack. It would be a sack, fumble, touchdown. It's just the worst possible scenario you can come up with, and that's got to be corrected this year. And you got to hope that it can. But when you think about Clemson having a top 5 roster, there's no excuses. And I think we got to really hope that some of these coaching hires and the getting rid of some of the coaches that were there before will kind of solve some of these issues, and we'll start seeing these players play up to their potential and up to their talent level when they were brought into Clemson. But again, that remains to be seen. We talked about it last week. We got to see it to believe it, right? The offense has sounded like they had a pretty good offseason. They had a pretty good fall camp. Cade Klubnik reportedly has grown. The offensive line has reportedly grown. The wide receivers are reportedly as healthy as they have ever been, and looking sharp and looking well. But again, are they going to look like that come August 31st when we kick the ball off against the Georgia Bulldogs, the number 1 team in the country? That's the big question, right? That's the question that remains to be answered. And we won't know until the ball's kicked off and we see, hey, how do we measure up against what everyone right now thinks is the best team in the country in the Georgia Bulldogs? How do we measure up? Do we look like we belong on that field? We'll find out August 31st. And we won't have to wait, because guess what? That's a noon kickoff as well. All right. Tickle Tiger says last year's team wasn't prepared, overlooked Duke. Don't expect that this year. No, you're not going to overlook. You're not going to overlook Georgia. That's for sure. Not going to overlook Georgia. Orange Blooded says first time losing a game when Clemson had 200 passing and 200 rushing yards. Talking about the Duke game, first game of the season last year. Yeah, absolutely. And what was the reason? Turnovers. Couldn't hang on to the ball. You literally handed Duke the game because you couldn't take care of the ball. It made no sense last year, and it really even that 5-game winning streak at the end of the season, we still turned the ball over in every single game. So we got to hope that really gets cleaned up this year, because, I mean, you walk out there week 1 against a team like Georgia and you start turning the ball over, it's going to get real ugly real fast. If you think Duke put a hurting on you, do that against Georgia, and it'll look real bad. Yeah, John Saran said it. There's no choice this year. You don't overlook Georgia. Absolutely. You do not. All right, guys. So that's my thoughts on the 2024 composite rankings from 247 Sports. Again, I'm not surprised that Clemson's top 5, because we've continued to recruit at pretty much the same level Clemson has always recruited at. The problem is it hasn't showed up on the field in the past 3 seasons. And that was you could point to a lot of different things. You could point to injuries. You could point to coaching. You could point to missing on some individuals. You can point to a lot of different things that factored into that. But the fact remains the same is Clemson has greatly regressed over the past 3 seasons. And I think 2024 is the year that we find out whether we're going to get it turned around in the right direction or we're going to sink further into this regression that has become Clemson football over the past 3 seasons. Jay brings up a good point, kicking. This is still something that, we kind of mentioned last week. We still don't have a clear kicker. Every time Dabo's asked, he says, excuse me. He says that, one's a little bit above the other one. They're going back and forth, so on and so forth. That's not what you really want to hear this close to, week one. You want to hear that a guy in Hauser has leaped ahead and he's asserted himself and he's going to be our kicker going forward. But they kind of answer the question and they say, oh, well, Hoosier, he's kind of, he's been a little ahead pretty much all camp, but Robert Gunn's right there. That's not what you really want to hear, in my opinion. You want to hear that one guy has taken the job and the other guy, hey, he's the backup, or, hey, Robert Gunn, we're going to use him as a kickoff specialist, and Hauser, he's going to be our field goal specialist, right? That's what you really want to hear, and let's hope that he's ready, right? Let's hope that Housier's ready, because kicking hurt us a ton last season, and we can't afford another season of that going on. Orange Blooded said, Matt Luke will get our O-line recruitment right. I believe that. I 100% believe that. With that said, we got talent in that room. And I think Matt Luke's the guy that's going to get the most out of the talent that's in that room right now. We've done pretty good at recruiting offensive line. Obviously, I think Matt Luke's going to take it to a different level than Clemson's recruited at. And you guys have heard me and Jordan talk about the offensive line before and the fact that we hate that Clemson doesn't really have and just never really had that elite level offensive line. And it really makes no sense because of how elite our defensive line has been for so long. Games are won in the trenches. There's no reason that Clemson can't also be elite at the offensive line position. But again, I think Dabo made the best hire he possibly could at the offensive line coach in Matt Luke. And I think he's going to take it to the next level. 100% agree with you on that, Orange Blooded. Think it'll be Gunn as kicker and Hauser as place kicker. Yeah, that's probably how it'll work out. That's what I assume as well. But again, I wish that Hoosier was just taking that next step and like it's a definite, right? Not he's a few kicks ahead or he's been a little ahead in fall camp. No, he's our kicker, right? That's what I want to hear. But it's just not what we've heard, and that just tells you how close that is, and it tells you that both of them are still somewhat inconsistent, is what it tells me, which is not a great feeling heading into the season when you got a game against Georgia a week away. So, I mean, that's just my thoughts on it. So, we'll see. But again, 42 minutes into the show right now. We got 40 people in the live chat. Thank you guys so much for showing up. Really do appreciate you guys hanging out with me tonight. Hit that like button while you're in here. If you're not subscribed, consider subscribing. Me and Jordan do this all-in show every Friday at 5:30 p.m. Invite you guys to subscribe to the channel. We cut it up and put out videos all throughout the week. So stay tuned for all of those as well. We also put timestamps in the description of the video if you're watching this in the rewatch. So help us out, help us grow the channel, bring all your people in. Football is winding up. Football is going to be full-fledged next weekend. We get a little taste of it this weekend. So there's going to be a lot more eyes coming into YouTube and into the college football community that we have over here on YouTube. So bring them over here to Clemson Football at the Voice of College Football. We would love to have them. They do not have to be a Clemson fan, although it's better. No, I'm just kidding. They don't have to be a Clemson fan. We welcome any and all fan bases in here and appreciate all of them. So last week, we kind of talked about questions for Clemson heading into the season. And although I am not the guy to go to for the roster top to bottom when it comes to UGA, right? And knowing what they have. I did a little research. And again, I was going to lose insight on this and kind of talk about what UGA has been doing the offseason, how'd their summer go, what did fall camp look like, what's some intel coming out of fall camp, what's their injury situation look like heading into week one against Clemson, and all that stuff. But we'll talk about it a little bit here. And some of my Georgia fans in the comments section, feel free to chime in with what you guys think and how your fall camp has gone and how you guys feel as a confidence level heading into week one playing against Clemson. I know we all get on the internet and everybody's ultra confident and my team's going to go, 27-0 and win a national title every single year. But how confident are you guys heading into the Clemson game? What do you guys think your weaknesses are heading into 2024? What are the weaknesses on Georgia? Because regardless of talent, Georgia probably recruits. They're one of the best programs in the country at acquiring and compiling talent, right? But again, there's always questions. There's always holes, if you will, every single year for every single college football team, and those change from year to year. So what are Georgia's heading into the 2024 season? I'm interested to hear from Georgia fans. So leave your comments in the comment section below. If you're in the live chat right now, get them into the live chat, and I'll be sure to to comment. So Georgia, heading into 2024, obviously they have a returning quarterback in Carson Beck, which everybody knows that's huge, getting a returning quarterback coming back, especially after a season like Georgia had last year. Their only loss coming in the SEC championship game against Alabama. Before that, they were full head of steam heading into the college football playoffs until they tripped up in Atlanta against Alabama and lost the SEC championship game. Alabama gets in and over them, and they end up going to the bowl game and absolutely destroying Florida State by 60 points. I don't know that we'll ever be able to forget that, but they got he's and as far as Carson Beck goes, second year starting, right? So you assume, just like us as Clemson fans talk about Cade Klubnik taking the next step, Georgia fans, I'm sure, are assuming that Carson Beck's going to take that next step. Oh, and by the way, he's been on campus for 5 years. This is his 5th year on campus in UGA. So, he's a second-year starter, but, really kind of a savvy vet at the same time, although he sat behind Stetson Bennett for much of that time. You're still getting all those reps. You're still getting that development in practice. So to have that many years in the program, I think is certainly an asset for Georgia heading into the 2024 season. Obviously, they return the offensive coordinator, Mike Bobo. They return the defensive coordinator. Now, as far as the offensive side of the ball and some big losses that they had, obviously, first name that comes to mind is Brock Bowers, big-time tight end for Georgia football. Their leading receiver from last year, absolutely torched every single defense he played almost. Lad McConkey, another big-time receiver that won't be there this season. So, again, I asked my Georgia fans, I asked my Georgia experts, right, what does Georgia's receiving core look like? Who are we filling those holes with, right? Because Brock Bowers and Lad McConkey are leaving huge holes in that receiving core if you look at the numbers last year, right? So who's Carson Beck's targets that he's going to fill with the exit of Brock Bowers and Lad McConkey? Is it going to be a receiver by committee deal? Is there a guy waiting to step in? I obviously know they got the tight end, returning tight end that sat behind Brock Bowers, Oscar Delp. Obviously, I think Georgia fans are probably pretty excited about him. I think they got a transfer from Stanford, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know his name. But again, who are they going to fill all of those targets and all of those yards with? Is it going to be somebody that steps up and has a huge season for them, or is it going to be kind of receiver by committee? Oscar Delp's going to be in there. That transfer from Stanford's going to be in there. Are they just going to kind of chop it up that way? I'd be interested to see how they're feeling coming out of fall camp. Who has emerged as kind of maybe that wide receiver one for them this season, kind of how Brock Bowers was last year, although he was a tight end. But who's going to take the bulk of those yards, the bulk of those targets? So that's one of the questions, obviously, heading into 2024 that I have for Georgia. Now, Georgia fans may have, I'm sure they can list off this guy, that guy, and that guy that I cannot, that I don't know about because they recruit at such a high level. So even when they lose people to the NFL draft, they got 4 and 5 stars just rolling right in, right behind them that are immensely talented, albeit unproven as far as what they've done in the college game. So that'll be interesting to see. Moving on to their running back room, obviously they brought in Trevor Etienne, the brother of Travis Etienne, that legend at Clemson. Everybody knows that. Brought him in from Florida. He had some off-season legal issues, so is that going to affect him in this Clemson game? I have no idea. Is he going to be suspended for it? I don't know that Kirby Smart will ever tell us that. So I see some David Wood in there talking about rah-rah, and yeah, everybody is kind of well-versed in his legal issues, so obviously that's not going to be an option at wide receiver for Carson Beck. But talking about Etienne, his legal troubles, I think he got pulled over for a DUI and maybe pled it down to whatever they got it settled for. But is that going to affect him week one? Is he suspended for week one? I don't know. And who's gonna step in behind him if he's not there to play? So that's obviously a question, just because what I would assume would be their first guy to run out there, Etienne, may be unavailable. Again, I'm not saying he is unavailable. I haven't heard anything. David Wood said it got pled down to reckless driving. Okay, so DUI got pled down to reckless driving, so obviously not really in a ton of legal trouble there. But again, is there going to be any team discipline that will affect either, whether he gets suspended for the game or the half or the quarter or whatever, or he doesn't get suspended at all and he runs out there and it's no problem? Again, that's just a question that I have as a Clemson fan for UGA heading into week one against us. And then obviously that's the offensive side of the ball. Talking about the defensive side of the ball, I mean, when you think about UGA, you think about Kirby Smart, you think about defense, you think about elite level defenses. So not a ton of questions, I don't think, as far as the defensive side of the ball for UGA, because they recruit at such a high level and their defense is elite year in and year out, typically. Obviously, they got those 2 returning defensive tackles. Luckily, they don't have the defensive line that we faced in, when we played them in Charlotte. Luckily, that defensive line isn't there from 2020, but again, or 2021. But again, they still recruit at a very high level. So how comfortable are they with their defensive line? Are there any question marks there? Probably not very many along that defensive front. The linebacker position, obviously Georgia is very deep, I think, as far as the linebacker position goes. That C.J. Allen, that freshman that started last year, he's a sophomore this year. Obviously, he looks to have, take that next step in year 2 and be even better than he was last year. I would assume Georgia fans are expecting that. Along the edge, the defensive end, Michael Williams, expecting him to take the next step. So I think they're pretty safe at those 2 positions along the defensive tackle, defensive end, and linebacker positions. As far as I can tell, very deep at safety as well. again, like I said, you don't think of very many question marks as far as Georgia goes on the defensive side of the ball. Cornerback may be a little thin over there, a little unproven. So maybe that's one of their only question marks, if you will, on the defensive side of the ball, and something that could possibly be exploited by Clemson if they could get the protection up front and get their wide receivers to get separation. Again, I don't know that that's going to happen, but again, that's maybe one of the weaker parts, if you will, of the Georgia defense. And again, that is relative. So those are some questions that I have for Georgia heading into the 2024 season. You guys put some in the comment section. What you guys got as question marks for the Georgia team? What are their weaknesses? What are their spots where they may be not as elite as they are at other position groups? I mentioned the cornerback position. I mentioned the wide receiver position and replacing all that production from Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey from a year ago. The running back position, the possible suspension of ETN because of his legal issues. Although everybody in here is telling me that it got pled down to reckless driving, and obviously that means his legal issues are kind of, over for the most part when it comes to that part. But are there any lingering team disciplines that he's going to have to go through week one? Again, we don't know. Guy Clemson says Georgia's linebacker is 6'4", 240 pounds. Yeah. Again, like I said, absolute beast there. John Sarian says UGA is down 2 defensive tackles, I think, but their replacements are good. Yeah, again, like I said, they got 4 and 5 stars to roll in like it's nobody's business. If anybody's built for attrition, especially on the defensive side of the ball, it's Georgia. But again, as talented as those guys are, unproven, right? Again, so just questions like, yes, they are immensely talented. Are you ready? Again, questions for UGA. I think we got Lou in here. Uncle Lou, you.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. Sorry I'm a little late. My kids came over for dinner today, and they're just now leaving, so I apologize for that.
It is fine. No big deal. I appreciate you you popping on for a few minutes, and it's actually perfect timing because I was just talking about UGA and some of the research that I did on them and some questions that I had for UGA heading into the 2024 season. So it's kind of perfect timing that you showed up. So I appreciate you showing up.
If your questions are about the defensive line, then I don't have the answers.
Well, that was one of my questions. Somebody in the chat was mentioning that you guys are down 2 defensive tackles, and obviously, if anybody is equipped for attrition, especially on the defensive side of the ball, it's Georgia. But again, some of those guys rolling out there may be a little unproven, if you will.
Yeah, they're not that deep at D line, really. I mean, that was the weak spot last year, and right. I mean, so they have most of the guys back. So I mean, Warren Brinson, Christian Miller, Nazir Stackhouse. I mean, these are names that Georgia fans will know. They all played last year, but they're not. I mean, they're not bad players. I mean, they would play just about anywhere, but they're not up to the level that we had maybe in the 2 or 3 years prior with guys like Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter and the Walker kid that went number 1 overall. I mean, so I don't know. I mean, it's probably the weak spot if there is one on that defense. But good thing Clemson's offensive line is garbage.
Well, yeah, that's what I was about to say. If you're a Clemson fan looking for a silver lining heading into week 1 against Georgia, they don't have the same defensive line that rolled out there and absolutely abused the Clemson offensive line that night in Charlotte. So,
nowhere near. Now they've got some young guys like everybody does, and you never really know. I mean, yeah, they're highly rated and highly recruited and all that, but until they play, you don't really know. So, and they're not going to start. It's going to be the same rotation of those 2 or 3 guys that I mentioned earlier. Maybe the young guys play a little, and maybe they end up being really good. But again, until you see them do it, it's hard to have all that much faith or confidence in it, especially first year guys. And they didn't really get anybody out of the portal, to help them out there. So I don't know about the Clemson game in particular. I was kind of joking earlier about y'all's O-line being garbage, but I mean, it's not the strength of your team. I mean, not. It's not where it used to be, but some other places down the road is where Georgia's defensive line. I mean, that's what cost Georgia last year was defensive. I mean, Alabama pushed us around on roller skate. It was embarrassing.
Right. Yeah.
It was bad.
In that SEC championship game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you lose a game by 3 points or whatever it was. There's 10 different things you can point to and say, well, if this would have happened or that or this and that. But like one obvious thing was just we completely outmatched Georgia's defensive line was. And like I said, it's those same guys back this year. So, yeah, they got another year of experience. But no matter how much those guys play, they're never going to be Jalen Carter or Jordan Davis. It's not going to happen. I mean, those 2 guys were freaks. And now y'all get guys like that every year on the defensive line. But, and Georgia does recruit well. But for whatever reason, like defensive line and wide receiver, I don't know. It's like a feast or famine thing. It seems like Georgia it gets lucky really at those 2 positions. I mean, you look at Jordan Davis. The guy was a 3-star. Nobody wanted him really, and he was one of the best we've ever had. Wide receiver, Ladd McConkey, 3-star. Nobody wanted him. Even Brock Bowers, like he was a 4-star, but there weren't 25 teams lined up outside Brock Bowers' door to recruit him. Now it was the COVID year, so it was a little weird his recruitment. But so Georgia's been lucky in a couple of cases along the defensive. Well, I won't say luck. I mean, they scout the guys and they obviously think that they have potential. That's why they bring them in. But compared to other positions, like linebacker and defensive back, where Georgia pretty much gets, it seems like whoever they want out of every single recruiting cycle, defensive line and wide receiver are the 2 areas where they kind of lag behind when it comes to recruiting against some of the big boys.
Yeah. So, I mean, those were some of the questions that I was going to ask you coming on the show is just, kind of, how has Georgia's offseason been? Every team kind of does the transformation in the summer and, we're basically fresh out of fall camp. They're just getting into, Clemson's getting into Georgia prep. Georgia's full swing into Clemson prep. So where are you guys at from an injury standpoint heading out of fall camp? Everybody knows there's always some untimely injuries in fall camp, and kind of what are the big question marks heading out of fall camp, at least from your perspective as a Georgia fan?
Yeah, a couple of nagging injuries with some players, but Georgia's had a pretty good off-season fall camp, whatever you want to call it, on the injury front. Nothing major. There's a guy with turf toe here and a guy with rehabbing an Achilles there or whatever, but nothing serious, nothing major, no knee injuries, nothing that's going to keep anybody out all year, that kind of thing. There's a defensive lineman, one of the younger guys, probably would have been a rotational guy this year. He may not play the first week or so. Our center is kind of up in the air. I'm not sure how Dabo and Clemson handle the practices, but Kirby treats it like it's some kind of government secret, like they're building a stealth bomber. It's ridiculous the way. Don't even get me started on all that. But anyway, so nobody gets to see the practices. Some of the media gets to see like the first 5 minutes of like 3 practices all off season. Yeah. And so our starting center has not been practicing. Our right guard has moved to center. Tate Ratledge, and has been taking snaps with the ones at center. But Kirby doesn't do the injury update deal. It doesn't matter whether a kid's in a coma or a kid has a cold. He's day to day. That's all Kirby's going to tell you. That's it. Same thing with the suspensions, by the way. I heard you talking a little bit about that when I first clicked on. he's not going to tell you or me or anyone else. If anybody's suspended, then they're just not going to play in the Clemson game, and you won't know until it's like halfway through the game, and you're like, "Where's ETN? Oh, I guess he's suspended." Like they don't publicize any of that. I think it's stupid, but they treat everything like it's top secret, classified. Whatever. But but the injuries have been okay. The injuries have been. We've definitely had worse off seasons when it comes to injuries than we have this one. We're pretty healthy, probably as healthy as any team could possibly be. Heading into the season, there's just some guys with some nagging stuff that may keep them out for a little while, but so far nothing major.
Yeah, absolutely. And believe me, as a Clemson fan, I can share in your frustration of them acting like it's the nuclear launch codes to the country.
Yeah.
When it comes to, because Dabo runs his program very similarly.
Yeah.
As far as the media coverage goes, it's the same thing. They get like 3 practices in spring or in fall ball, and they get to watch like the first period of practice or whatever, which is probably nothing. It's probably like stretching and, everybody high-fiving each other or something. There's no real insight there. And then the same thing when it comes to the day. I mean, you mentioned the day-to-day stuff. It's so frustrating because we were doing kind of a recap last week's show about Clemson's injuries heading into the 2024 season. The only injuries that he'll ever tell you about is if they're gone for the season.
Yep, that Kirby too. Yep, same thing.
So he mentioned the 3 guys that were gone for the season, and the rest of the people are just day-to-day, which Dabo could mean a month, 2 weeks, a day, or, halfway through the season.
I remember George Pickens had that injury at UJ a few years ago, and every week he was playing next week. He's running at 80%, and he's probably going to be dressed out. It'd probably be good. And every week he never played, and then he ended up playing like 3 snaps in the SEC championship game, 5 snaps in the first playoff game, and like 5 snaps in the second. And that was all we saw of him his last year at Georgia. But they always tell you come back tomorrow.
Didn't he not even play until last few games of the season that
year? He didn't play at all until the SEC championship game. And he was really just a decoy in that thing. I think he caught 1 pass in that. He played 3 snaps and caught 1 pass in the SEC championship game, and then had a couple of catches in the playoffs, and that was it. He was off to the NFL. Best receiver, definitely the best receiver we've had since AJ Green, and we really only got him for about a year and a half. He didn't play much his freshman year. Played his second year, and then hardly played his third year, and then he was gone. We're not like y'all. We are like y'all now. Y'all used to get great wide receivers. I don't know what happened. Now y'all got a wide receiver room full of people that nobody can name. I know you can name them, and the people in your chat can name them, but I just mean your average. There's no Sammy Watkins in there, is what I'm saying. Like you go to Iowa and ask somebody to name the Clemson wide receiver, they don't know who they are. That's how it is. That's always been that way at Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been rough for Clemson. I mean, really the past 3 seasons. I mean, it seems like we can't get a healthy wide receiver room to save our life. I mean, even the guys that, as you mentioned, nobody knows their name. They can't stay healthy. They can't stay on the field. So really this off season has been the best for Clemson as far as, especially at that wide receiver room that you mentioned, and a lot of the hype, I guess, coming into the season is surrounded on those 2 big freshmen that we brought in, TJ Moore and Brian Wesco. And then I think, from there, you're looking at Antonio Williams and Tyler Brown, the 2 freshmen that led the, team in receiving yards their freshman seasons. But again, I get it. We don't have a room full of, Sammy Watkins and Martavis Bryant and, T. Higgins and Justin Ross and all of that anymore. So that's definitely been a change for Clemson, but hopefully we can get it turned around this season as far as becoming more explosive, because I think a stat that I found interesting that I ran across this week was Cade Klubnik was dead last in FBS quarterbacks when it came to passes greater than 20 yards last season.
Yeah.
And that shows that, and really what we did is we just gave up on pushing the ball down the field.
Yeah.
There was no confidence in the receivers. There was no confidence in the offensive line blocking long enough, and there certainly wasn't any confidence in Cade Klubnik, making the reads or getting the ball to whoever was open. And that turned into no separation, no good pass blocking, and a lot of poor decisions by Cade. So it was frustrating to watch.
Yeah, I can't name off all the Clemson stats like I'm sure you can, but I watched a lot of Clemson games last year, and it's really crazy to me how much their offense has regressed since like the coach, around 2020 or whatever. It's just I mean, it sounds weird to say, but y'all are almost. I can't believe I'm about to say this. Y'all might be a wider version than Iowa. Think about that for a second. Wow.
Oh, no.
A wider version of Iowa. Wow. Dang. Big dang. What happened? Did Dabo have any kids left that he can put out there, or what's going on with that? How many kids does he have on the team this year?
I think just one left.
One this year, and one assistant coach son too now, I hear.
Yes. Yeah.
Good. Not his brother, though.
No.
Just his kids.
No, definitely not that. But yeah, look, as a Clemson fan, it has been infuriating and mind-boggling to watch the decline of Clemson offense over the past 3 seasons.
Yeah, it's been weird.
Everything for Clemson's offense over the past 3 seasons has looked difficult, has looked hard. And you can point to, we had Trevor Lawrence, and we had Deshaun Watson, and there's none of those dudes walking through the door, and I get that, but I think there was a period of time, and we've talked about it on here, where I think Dabo hired coaches that weren't ready, and he gave people opportunities that hadn't earned those opportunities yet, and it clearly affected Clemson. And obviously, he started to somewhat correct that with bringing on Garrett Riley, bringing on, guys like Matt Luke and Chris Rump from the NFL, and trying to fill those holes. And, I'm glad he didn't let Brandon Streeter sit there and have 2 or 3 years of just an inept offense.
Right.
I'm glad he fired him after the first season and brought in Garrett Riley. But even last year with Garrett Riley, the offense didn't look ready. And if you look at the first part of the season, Garrett Riley was kind of running his style of stuff where, he likes to pull offensive linemen and get them out in space and all that kind of stuff. And Clemson's O-line I don't know if the coach couldn't teach it or they couldn't perform it, but if you saw, the back half of the season where we went on that 5-game winning streak starting with Notre Dame, we went back to the zone blocking scheme and the stuff that Clemson's done for a long time. And Garrett Riley kind of, I don't know if you call it dumbed down his offense, but kind of stripped a lot of that stuff down just to get through the season. And, as a Clemson fan, you got to hope that, heading into this season, we're past that. And, we get to see something a little closer to Garrett Riley's offense that we expected to see. And I think there's no bigger hire that Dabo made this offseason than bringing on Matt Luke, because I think he's going to definitely have a big effect on that offensive line. Obviously he ain't going to fix everything year one. That's not a position group where you just walk in and, suddenly everything's fixed. But at least we got a guy that I believe can fix it for us.
Yeah, I liked him at Georgia. I hated to lose him. I still don't really know. I'm a skeptic by nature. So I don't know what really happened with Matt Luke at Georgia. I don't think he just out of the blue decided to retire. I don't know if there was something going on there that he didn't like. I don't know if it was a personality conflict with somebody else on the staff. I don't know what it was, but I don't even know. Do you remember that? He just out of the blue, I'm retiring. And I was like, what? It was weird. And I really liked him a lot because we got extremely lucky because we had Sam Pittman as O-line coach before that.
Right.
And when he got the head job at Arkansas, I was like, man, this is bad because they don't make them much better than Sam Pittman when it comes to O-line coaches. And then we lucked out and got Matt Luke, and he picked up right where Pittman had left off. And then just like out of the blue, he was like, well, that's it for me. I'm walking away, and I'm like, what? This guy's like 45 years old. It was strange.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised to see him back in college football at all. And I'd love to find out the real story one day, but I've got no clue what actually happened there.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a story there, but Matt Luke doesn't strike me as the guy that's ever going to talk about
No,
anything.
he's not going.
And,
No,
and neither does Kirby. So we'll
yeah,
probably never get the real story of what happened, but obviously something went on. Like
yeah.
you don't just up and retire from college football, at that age, and then
Yeah.
a couple of years later you're back in the game. So
He's a good one though. So I mean, I agree with you. There are no miracle workers. You got to have it's the whole Jimmys and Joes versus X's and O's deal. He'll fix the X's and O's. There's no doubt about it. It may take him a year to get some different Jimmy and Joes in there. I don't know, but he'll immediately make your offensive line better. I'm confident in that.
Yeah, no, and so am I. And I'm excited to see the jump that he makes this season. Again, I don't expect it to be perfect or anything like that, but I do expect some level of improvement, especially when you're talking about a guy as experienced. And I mean, you just list off the offensive linemen that he's thrown in the NFL and the groups that he's produced at wherever he's been a coach at. So that's definitely exciting. And I was glad that Dabo added a different voice in the room. I mean, you talk about a guy in Matt Luke and then Chris Rump. Obviously, Chris Rump spent all that time in the NFL. Matt Luke's been a college head coach. I think Clemson really needed different voices in the room that hadn't been a part of the program for 10 plus years. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, he needs a voice to tell him to go Google the transfer portal and figure out what that is.
Yeah.
What do you think? Seriously, what do you think would have happened last year if Keon Coleman transferred to Clemson instead of Florida State?
I mean, obviously, it would have been
just one player.
Yeah,
one
it
player.
would have been a huge deal for Clemson. I think we win the Florida State game.
Yeah, you win the ACC.
I mean, just that one game right there alone,
Yeah.
I think you switch that dude in uniform and we win that game. So I mean, there's no question he would have been wide receiver 1 for Clemson and probably produced a ton of yards.
People can tell me I hate Clemson until I'm blue in the face. I don't hate Clemson. I don't have any reason to hate Clemson or Dabo or anybody else like that. But I'm telling you, if I was a Clemson fan, I'd be the most hated Clemson fan on the planet. What he's doing is unacceptable, dude. It's a dereliction of duty. I mean, it really is. It just makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah, no.
Because Clemson's not getting all that. Like on the defensive side of the ball, they're fine. And they're not really getting that much worse on the offensive side of the ball, but other teams are catching and passing them by using without the portal. Florida State is nowhere near what they were last year.
Right.
Not even close.
Yep.
So I don't know what he's going to do with all that. And I know he pretended to try to get 2 players out of the portal, but I mean, he's got to.
I think so. And me and Jordan talked about this on the show kind of when, the spring season, when that was kind of happening and, us speculating whether he was going to go into the portal or not. And I think like Clemson, one, he does need to use the portal, right? He doesn't need to. I don't ever want Clemson or Dabo Swinney to operate in the portal like a Deion Sanders, right?
No, nobody wants
no one's ever, or even to the level that a Mike Norvell does it. Because I think Clemson consistently recruits better than Florida State. That averages out in the numbers, I think, if you looked at it. But you need to at least dabble and fill holes, right? Of key positions throughout your roster. For instance, we have a center battle right now that's going on between a guy in Ryan Lithicum that's been, on campus for 3 years now, and then a second-year guy in Harris Sewell that's, a true sophomore. And you lose a multi-year starter from last season's team, right? So that's such a key position on the offensive line. I would have liked to see Clemson go out and get a seasoned center to come in and kind of anchor that offensive line, especially with the addition of a Matt Luke and, you're trying to change things there and go in a different direction. I think that would have been a good thing. But again, I think Clemson, how Clemson kind of operates on the high school recruiting trail, where
Right.
they slow play a lot of stuff. They don't offer a lot of guys. They're very, selective in what they do. And I think they took that approach with the few offensive linemen they did go after last year. I think they took that same approach, and the transfer portal is completely different. It's
Right.
fast paced, and it's what's the NIL situation look like?
Yeah,
Right?
and in most cases, it's players that want to play now. They don't want to be sold some kind of developmental story about, hey, you can play behind this guy, and in 2 years, they're not trying to hear that in most cases. Out of the portal. But like the problem goes beyond the ACC and Florida State catching you. Like even if you win the ACC, then you get into the playoffs. And you talked about Clemson's recruiting. Clemson recruits good. They've never recruited great, ever. They're a 10 to 15 type recruiting team, and that's good. It's really good. But in the playoffs, you're playing teams that recruit in the top 5, Georgia, Bama, Ohio State. So these teams are not only out recruiting you year in and year out, high school recruiting, they're also going out and getting the top 10 players out of the portal like every year. So if I don't know, man, it just seems like, if you're Clemson standing still and they're getting lapped by people.
And and I get that opinion. And, I don't think Clemson needs to do, overhauls in the portal or anything like that. But I think grabbing, 2, 3, 4 guys a year to fill holes at key positions and really just bring in, guys that are going to play now. But again, to that point, like those offensive linemen they were looking at, they were trying to sell developmental stuff. Like, hey, we want you here for a couple years, and that's not what the portal is. So they have to change their portal approach. One, when it comes to just if we have a hole and there's somebody out there, let's go get them. And then 2, like it's a start now type of thing. You're not pulling anybody out of the portal that's going to be willing to sit a year. Very seldom. There's some guys out there, but those are your unicorns. You're not going to find those very often in the transfer portal.
I mean, you should look around and you should go, okay, these are the 8 or 9 position groups or whatever that we have. What are the weakest 2? Okay, go get me somebody out of the portal that plays that position. Like in Clemson's case, and I don't know how Clemson fans are on Cade Klubnik, but that guy ain't no good. Get a quarterback. I mean, there's 20 wide receivers in the portal this year that could start for Clemson. I mean, it's so obvious where the weaknesses are. And then to just stick your head in the sand and say, well, I don't like the portal, so I'm just going to torpedo my own ship. It would infuriate me. I don't even know what I would do.
Yeah, absolutely. Look,
I'd be big mad about it.
It has been a frustrating 3 years as a Clemson fan, especially heading from, where we were for so long and the consistency.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I don't know your thoughts on it, so it's not directed towards you or whatever. But every single time I talk about this, the Clemson fans want to argue. But I mean, the reality is, you were pretty good in 2020 when you made it to whatever you made it to, and then every year after that, you've had more losses than the year before. Is it possible that Clemson's downward trend started the exact same time everybody else started using the portal? Is it possible that's coincidence? Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
But what's more likely is that they're getting worse because they're not using the portal and everyone else is. I mean, you lost 1 game, then 2 games, and then 3 games, and then last year you lose 4. Like you can draw a straight line from the portal started here, and Clemson was losing 1 game a year. 4 years later, we still don't use the portal, and now we're losing 4 games. It's obvious to everybody except a handful of delusional Clemson homers that y'all are headed in the wrong direction because of the portal.
I mean it's very clear that Clemson is headed in the wrong direction, and that's why I think 2024 is such a pivotal year for Clemson. And
y'all was brutal, man. I mean, some of y'all are going to be mad on October 1st, but because you're gonna have nothing to play for.
Yeah,
I mean, Georgia, Florida State, NC State,
yep.
App State. I mean, look, I'm not saying you'll lose to App State, but that ain't no This ain't the
Well, I
type of
mean,
year you want an App State on your schedule, I don't think. Y'all's
yeah,
first 5 or 6 games, I mean, y'all are going to have at least 2 losses, at
yeah.
least.
The first
That's what I
5 games are tough. I mean, we don't really get, kind of reprieve until game 6, and that's Stanford, right?
Yeah.
So the first part of the season is rough for Clemson, and you couldn't open up with a worse opponent, I think, than Georgia.
Let me ask you this about the quarterback. So, one of the ballsiest, greatest head coaching moves of all time was the way I think Dabo handled the Kelly Bryant to Trevor Lawrence thing. I think it took a lot of balls to do that. It was obviously the right decision.
Right.
But it can't be easy to do that. You got a quarterback takes you to the playoffs and you're benching him in week 4 for a true freshman. That's a hard. Not very many coaches would have the stones to make that move, and he deserves a lot of credit for that.
Yeah.
So I remember watching a Clemson spring game and hearing a lot of people talk about the way the Clemson backup played in that spring game. Is there any chance if y'all are 2-2 or 3-2 or something, is there any chance he would bench Klubnik?
I mean,
If it's clear that Klubnik is a big part of the problem, like maybe he's got 100 interceptions again, like he did last year.
I mean, I have to say yes, there's a chance because I've seen Dabo do it before.
Yeah.
But it would just depend on who's behind him, and that is Chris Vizina, right? And he set all of last season, and he came in as sort of a developmental guy. He definitely needed at least a year. There's been good reports on him coming out of fall camp, and that he's he's right where he needs to be. But again, that could be a lot of coach speak. So it would really depend. I mean, Klubnik and Vizina had a terrible spring game.
Yeah,
both of them had a terrible spring game. So if you're going off the spring game, they both were bad in the spring game, right?
Well, who was the other one? The other one I think is a walk-on that people wouldn't stop talking about after y'all's spring game. It was some quarterback must have done something because
it was Trent Pierman.
that's who it is. Pierman. Yeah. People were wanting Pierman to start over Klubnik.
That's never going to happen. He's third on the depth chart at best. That's never going to happen. And I get what people say, but you can't one spring game, one off thing, and he goes in there because there's also been reports during fall camp where he has not looked good at all, right?
Yeah, not just any old team can throw a walk-on quarterback in and win 2 national championships in a row.
Yeah, I don't assume, no offense to Trent Pierman, but I don't think he's the next Stetson Bennett.
He's no Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett had 6. How many interceptions did Stetson Bennett throw last weekend? 4? Dang.
Look here.
Turns out he ain't no good.
No, he ain't good at all. There's no way. I still can't believe that Stetson Bennett won 2 national titles.
I can't believe he won 2 games.
There's no way. I'm not gonna lie. When Georgia started Stetson Bennett, I was like, oh, they're through. There ain't no way.
2021, by the time it all ended, I was like, okay, our defense gave up 9 points a game. All right, Stetson was on a team that won a natty. Okay, right. But we all know it was the defense.
Yeah.
But 2022 blew my mind. Yeah, I could not believe what I was seeing week in, week out from Stetson Bennett in 2022. I mean, he outplayed C.J. Stroud in C.J. Stroud's best game of his career. Yeah. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. If you would have told me that Stetson Bennett was going to win a shootout, look, it's not that I didn't think Georgia could beat Ohio State, but I thought we'd beat them, 27-17.
Right.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. That's the wild, because he's not that good. But for whatever reason, he turned it on when he needed to a couple of times, and it's an unbelievable story. But yeah, I was dead wrong on Stetson.
I was wrong too. I was like, "There's no way this guy." I was like, "What is Kirby Smart doing? Here we go."
Yeah, I was so mad.
And then I was mad. He goes out and does what he does in year 2 and wins another natty. And you couldn't say, to your point, you couldn't say it wasn't because of him.
No, believe me, I tried. I tried to give credit to anybody but Stetson Bennett. I couldn't do it.
I'm trying to tell you, man, it was the wildest thing. But I mean, that's what's funny about that is that's the beauty of college football, because nobody in their right mind out here is trying to tell you at least a rational person, that Stetson Bennett's better than C.J. Stroud
No.
or Trevor Lawrence or any of these other guys. But look
Yeah.
at the run he went on. Like,
Yeah.
that's what makes college football so much fun, and
Yeah.
why I like it so much more than the NFL is, like, you'll never get that in the NFL. That'll never happen.
Yeah.
In college football, stuff like that can still happen, right? Stetson Bennett can still exist in college football.
Yeah.
Hunter Renfro can still exist in college football.
Yeah. Unreal. Unbelievable. Yeah.
It's crazy. So that's what makes college football fun, I think. But, as far as Dabo Swinney goes and the transfer portal, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think he's going to change his philosophy very much. I really don't. And we're going to find out this season. I think 2024 is a pivotal season for Clemson, at least in my mind as a Clemson fan, because we're going to find out this year if we're going to get it going. And I'm not saying Clemson has to go out and, compete for and win a national title in 2024. I'm not, not saying that at all. But you either get it trending in the right direction this season, or I think it just gets worse from here, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the worst possible scenario for Clemson this year would be if 2 ACC teams made the playoffs and one of them wasn't Clemson.
Oh, it'd be
like, let's say Miami finally puts it together, right? And they've been using the portal, right? So that you're going to have that, or say it's Miami and Florida State. Now, if only one ACC team gets in and maybe Clemson's sitting there at 10-2 or whatever and just barely misses the playoffs or something, you say, okay, well, only one ACC team got in. Okay. Right. But if 2 get in and one of them is not Clemson, and the 2 that get in are portal teams like Florida State and Miami, it's going to be hard to defend that.
Yeah, it would be very hard to defend.
That would be worst case scenario for Dabo.
And that's why I say this year is pivotal for Clemson and Dabo, and the current philosophy that he's operating under is they got to get it turned back in the right direction. And it starts with the offense. I think Clemson's going to have a really good defense again this year, like they do pretty much every single year.
Yeah.
It's not, there was a small regression, obviously, when Brent Venables left. I mean, that's natural. Like, that's going to happen. When you lose a guy like Brent Venables, your defense is going to take a step back. But I think Wes Goodwin has done a great job filling in. And, I think he turned out to be the best guy possible to kind of take in and take over for Brent Venables. But, and I feel good about most of the defense. Some question marks at cornerback. We got 2 guys banged up that are quote unquote day-to-day, according to Dabo, which we know from our previous conversation that means whatever. So we're slim there in the fact that the guys behind them are very talented but unproven. So that worries me a little bit. But linebacker, we're solid. Defensive tackle, we're probably as deep as we can possibly be. A little slim on the edge, but I like what we got in TJ Parker and Peter Woods being pushed out there. So think we're good there. But again, the offense has got to look better, and we're not going to have to wait to find out, because you're playing an elite defense in Georgia. And I know there's probably a question mark here or there on the Georgia defense, but that's the best defense that Clemson's got on their schedule. And unfortunately, it's week 1, and unfortunately, we're going into a season where we're going to figure out, are we going to get it going in the right direction or not? And frankly, for me as a Clemson fan, heading into the Georgia game, and you can kind of tell me your thoughts, from a Georgia perspective going into the game. But for me, Clemson, we don't, nobody's out there picking Clemson to win the game, right? Nobody's out there picking an upset against Georgia. But Clemson has to go out there, and they got to look like they belong on the field with Georgia.
I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah. I know a lot of people aren't in favor of the 12-team playoff, but the realities have changed a little bit. So, does it suck to lose week 1 in a non-con game? Yeah.
Yeah.
Does it matter at all? No. Really. You can go 8-4. If your 4 losses are non-con games, you won the ACC and you're in the playoffs. So losing to Georgia, like you said, it's more of a measuring stick than anything. I mean, you don't want to go out there and do like a 28-7 thing like last year, but
Right.
And it goes for Georgia too, because Georgia could lose. You've been watching football a long time, like I have. There are no guarantees, so I'm not guaranteeing Georgia will win. Georgia could lose this game. It'd mean the same thing for Georgia that would mean for Clemson. Really,
Yeah.
it means you better get better quick, fast, and in a hurry. But your season won't be over.
Right. Yeah.
With the one non-con loss. Again, if it's a blowout either way, Clemson blows out UJ, Georgia blows out Clemson. Maybe that's a little different because you get a bunch of red flags there.
Right.
But just the loss in and of itself being a non-con loss, it really won't even hurt either team rankings wise 8 weeks from now when the playoff stuff starts to come out, because it'll be a quality loss.
Right.
So you just, like you said, you want to look competitive. You don't want to look outmatched, either team.
Right. And it sucks to say that as a Clemson fan, because, last matchup in Charlotte, we went in there, I went in there as a Clemson fan confident, right? And it ended up being a really close game. Obviously, no offensive touchdown scored. You guys, took the turnover to the house, and that was the end of the game, 10-3, right? So no offense from either side in that game, but that's kind of where we're at as a Clemson program right now. When you're playing the number one team in the country, first game of the season, and how inept Clemson's offense has been, they just got to show life again. And if you can show life against a team like Georgia, I think that sets you up for some momentum, especially that first part of that season. We just talked about Clemson's first 5 games. I mean, you go UGA, then you go home at App State, and then you got home against NC State, right?
Yeah, either them or another nobody, but then NC State, and then
NC State, and then Florida State. Away. You got to go to Florida State. So your first 5 games of the season are tough. They're not easy. They're not gimme games, and so especially that first one. So you got to go in there, and from game one, from snap one, from jump, your offense has got to look completely different than it has for 3 seasons. That's a tall ask. That's a big order. But Clemson cannot, from a narrative standpoint, from a momentum standpoint, heading into those next 4 games, they cannot get blown off the field against Georgia. They can't.
Yeah. If I'm a Clemson fan, I'm looking at it the same way. I hope we win. I want to win, but we can't get blown out, and we can't turn the ball over. Y'all turned the ball over in every game last year. Every
game, Lou.
Yeah.
Every game last year. We talk about how Clemson kind of turned the corner the last 5 games of the season, and we went on that win, and we beat Notre Dame, and we beat Kentucky at the end in the bowl game, and everybody's happy. And Cade Klubnik led that game-winning drive against Kentucky in the bowl game, and that'll push us momentum into next season and into spring and yada yada yada, right? But to your point, every single game. And the only reason that we won as many games as we did last year is because our defense was great, and they produced a lot of turnovers of their own, thankfully.
Yeah.
Because we put them in terrible positions game after game. I mean, the thing about Clemson last year is it wasn't just turnovers. Like, you go to the Florida State game, right? Like, it was Clemson's about to pull this off, right? And then it's a sack, fumble, 70-yard touchdown, overtime, we lose the game.
Yeah.
Like, it was just the most catastrophic turn. It wasn't just turnovers. Like, they were catastrophic. I mean, you think about the Duke game, week 1. Goal line, goal to go, fumble going into the end zone, fumble going into the end. Like, what are we doing? Like, the amount of times that we fumbled, like, inside the 5-yard line going into the end zone was insane last year. It was crazy. And you got to clean that up going, because it's like I was talking earlier before you hopped on. You go out against Georgia and you start turning the ball over, it's going to get ugly real fast.
Yeah.
Real fast. So the turnovers, I mean, I don't even know what that was last year. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure teams have done it before, but it can't be that normal to turn the ball over in every single game of the season.
Yeah, because some of turnover is just dumb luck. Like, it's not a necessary. Like, okay, a quarterback throws the ball right to a DB. Yeah, that's on the QB. But that's not every turnover. A certain percentage of turnovers are just dumb luck. So you would think that over the course of the season, you would avoid that dumb luck once out of 13 games. But Clemson couldn't do it. It was the weirdest thing. It became a running joke really last year when you were watching the Clemson game. You're like, have they turned it over yet? No, not yet. Well, they must be about to then.
Yeah, I mean that
was weird.
might have been the most sure bet of the college football season last year. Hey, just go ahead and bet that Clemson's going to turn the ball over. That's a win every single time. Collect your money. But yeah, I don't know what that was. But it can't continue to this year because the first five. I mean, you start doing that this season, and you go out against Georgia and get your doors blown off. You risk your season being over, like you're talking about, within the first 5 weeks of the season. At least,
yeah. I don't know about any particular game, but I don't think that's going to happen again for Clemson. I mean, turnovers in general are so random. Like you can go back and look at like turnover stats from year to year, like a team that led the nation in causing turnovers one year, and like the next year they're like 40th. Like, did they somehow forget how to intercept the ball? No, it's so turnovers are so random that it's hard to repeat that, good or bad. Like in other words, it's hard to lead the country in turnovers 2 years in a row, and it's hard to lead the country in turnovers forced 2 years. Like both of those things are there's just too much randomness involved. There's no way that happens to Clemson again.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But we'll see. Now, get a little more insight on Georgia. Talking about your guys' offense, because we talked about the defense a little bit.
Yeah.
What are you guys looking at wide receiver, tight end? I know you guys got Oscar Delp, but replacing Brock Bowers and Lad McConkey, that's a big portion of yardage last year. And, obviously you got Carson Beck, year 2. You think he's obviously going to take a step forward. Been on campus for 5 years now? Forever, it seems like.
Yeah, well, it's his 4th year, yeah. Well, I mean, Brock Bowers isn't getting replaced. I mean, that's just the end of that conversation. I mean, there's not another. That's just all there is. Now, and Oscar Delp is really good. And if Brock Bowers had never existed, I think Oscar Delp would be getting even more hype than he is. But it's everything is always in comparison to something else, right? Well, in comparison to Brock Bowers, Oscar Delp is some amount below that. He's still really, really good. I don't doubt or have any question marks or anything about Oscar Delp. Lad McConkey is a little bit different. Now we've got a bunch of Lad McConkeys on the team in that we've got a bunch of undersized slot receivers. But I don't know that any of them are going to do what Lad McConkey could do. We don't have a wide receiver 1. Period. Ra Thomas was the closest we had to a wide receiver 1, and he's been promoted to fan. So Dylan Bell is good, but he's 5'5". I mean, I'm exaggerating. These are all people that are under 6'2". I mean, Dylan Bell and Dom Lovett, and then a couple of transfers. That the big tall kid from Miami, Jacoby Young, is that his name? Yeah. Michael Jackson from Southern Cal, the kid we got from Vandy. Georgia doesn't recruit wide receivers very well, so that's where they spend a lot of their time in the portal, is bringing in wide receivers. They did it 2 seasons ago. Now they've done it again this season. But Georgia's got a bunch of really good wide receiver 2s. Georgia's got a bunch of wide receivers that would be a great second option on almost any team in the country, except for maybe Ohio State, who's just ridiculous at there. But they don't have a dominant outside wide receiver. They don't have a George Pickens. Ra Thomas would have been the closest to that. But all of the wide receivers are good. Are any of them great? Probably not. I think Dom Lovett and Dylan Bell are going to be very productive because they're Lad McConkey type receivers. So they're going to be running. It's a familiarity thing for Carson Beck. So those 2 guys are going to be running the same routes, lining up in the same places that Lad McConkey's been lining up in for the last couple of years. Again, are they as good as Lad McConkey? No, but they're good enough. I think they'll have good years. Offensive line will be fine. Running backs, I've been down on the running back situation for a couple of years. Georgia had a string of running backs that just makes your jaw hit the floor. You're going all the way back to Todd Gurley in 2012, but This following list of running backs, at least one, in some cases three, and in almost all cases, at least two of these running backs I'm about to name were on Georgia's team every single year from 2012 till 2 years ago. Todd Gurley, Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, DeAndre Swift, James Cook, Kenny McIntosh.
Good Lord.
One, two, and in some cases, three of those players were on Georgia at the same time from 2012 to 2022.
That's ridiculous.
Last year, we didn't have anything close to that. Nothing close. We were playing, we had a Dabo special playing running back last year, Cash Jones, this little bitty white walk-on. And he would get the crowd excited when he came in because it's fun to watch those guys play. But like the drop-off in overall talent of the running back position at Georgia was significant. Now, that was due to injuries last year, and a lot of those guys are back. There's a lot of excitement about this young kid, Nate Frazier, a true freshman who might end up being pretty good. But we got both the Robinson kids there. Of course, bring ETN back or in through the portal. So I don't know if Georgia's running back room will be like what it was when we had Chubb and Michelle sharing carries. But I do think Georgia's running backs will be better than they were either of the last two seasons. Last season for sure. So I think they'll be okay offensively. I mean, they were top 5 offense last year in points per game, total yards, the whole deal. Carson Beck's, one of the best returning quarterbacks in football, somewhere in the top 5. People can argue about where they want to put him there, but he's a top 5 returning quarterback, bunch of yards. You would expect him to, like you mentioned, take a step forward in year 2, but he had a really good year 1. I mean, if all I got out of Carson Beck this year is what I got last year, that'd be hard to complain about. He needs to work on his deep ball a little. He throws a pretty deep ball, but the timings just always seems off. He would, he's overthrowing one, he's underthrowing another one. He missed on a lot of deep balls last year. That'd be maybe one area he would need to improve in this year. But completion percentage was really high. The touchdown to interception ratio was good. He threw for a ton of yards. Now he's not mobile, 3rd and 4, can he scramble for 5 yards? Yeah. Once a game, something like that, maybe, but he's not he's more of a traditional pocket passer than what you see most teams playing with these days. He's not going to hurt you with his legs. He like I said, he might be good to pick up a first down for you once or twice a game, on 3rd and medium type situations. But yeah, he'll have a good year. We'll see how the chemistry is between him and the wide receivers, but I think Georgia's offense is going to be one of the best in the country again this year. They get everybody, the quarterback is back, head coach is back, offensive coordinator is back. You look at the top teams in the country, not many of them can say that. Ohio State's got a new offensive coordinator and a new quarterback. Alabama's got a brand new coaching staff. Texas is intact, Sarkisian and Quinn Ewers, but a lot of the top teams are changing a lot over there. Georgia brings most of it back. I think they're going to be pretty good again offensively.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys are going to be kind of wide receiver by committee and fill it that way, and that works out sometimes. Sometimes
you know how many 1,000-yard receivers Georgia's had? You know this joke?
I don't. Probably not a lot.
One.
Because for the longest, Georgia was just ground and pound, known for that style of offense.
Georgia has one wide receiver that's ever had a 1,000-yard season in 120 years.
Ever?
Ever. Terrence Edwards, 2002.
Wow.
Yeah. And that gets used against us all the time on the recruiter. We can't even get the top wide receivers out of the state of Georgia. Never mind going nationwide to just pluck top wide receivers.
That's insane.
Stored into the straw there. So that's why what Georgia ends up with is a bunch of wide receivers who check off like all of the boxes except one. Right. Yeah. Which is what prevents them from being 5 stars or really high rated 4 stars. So maybe they're fast and they run good routes, but they're 5'9". Right. Maybe they're 6'5", but they're slow and can't catch that good or whatever. Like they don't have any, you used the word unicorn, or they don't have no unicorn wide receivers. It's a miracle we got George Pickens. But they've got good wide receivers. They would be wide receiver 2s on most teams. That's what you'd look at these guys and you go, that's a slot receiver. But at Georgia, they may be playing out wide because you just don't have that. Georgia just doesn't have that on the outside. So you end up every year with 4, 5, 6 receivers that are catching 500 and 600 yards, instead of one with 1,200 or 1,300. The overall passing numbers for Georgia have improved drastically over the last 5 or 6 years. Stetson Bennett never threw for more than 3,200 yards, 3,300. Jake Fromm before that never broke 3,000 yards. You got quarterbacks throwing for 5,000 yards a year. Georgia's down here making the national title game in 2017 with a quarterback that threw for 2,700 yards and couldn't run on top of that, and Jake Fromm. So they've come a long way. I mean, Carson Beck had 4,000 yards last year. He'll have it again this year. They'll have one of the best passing games in the country again. But it is true that they don't have your prototypical alpha wide receiver. They just don't have that. So, if you can come up with a secondary, then you got a chance against those wide receivers, because these aren't first round draft pick guys playing wide receiver for the now. Maybe you get lucky with a Lab McConkey or something, and it's just an out of the blue thing. No one saw it coming. But you look in Georgia's wide receiver room and you try to point out which one of these wide receivers is going to make it in the NFL. It's a coin flip, because none of them check enough boxes to just automatically pencil them in as, okay, that's the go-to guy.
Yeah, and that, from a Clemson standpoint, that's interesting because, I feel good about Clemson's defense, but if I had to pick a few areas, and it's not necessarily I don't like the guys that are going to run out there first. I'm just not sure about the depth, right? There's two position groups. There's defensive end. There's the edge position group. That I'm not sure how the depth is going to perform there. But the first two guys running out, Peter Woods, I mean, everybody knows what that dude can do. And TJ Moore from last year was a freshman and absolutely dominated at the position. So just expect more of that from him. But talking about the cornerback position, we got Avion Terrell, the brother of AJ Terrell, who plays for the Falcons now. That's probably our number one elite lockdown type corner. Again, true sophomore, young guy, but got a lot of play last year and proved himself. And then on the other side, you got a 3-year guy in Jaden Lucas who hasn't been able to be healthy, but a freakish dude when it comes to just his measurables and, talent level, right? And then Shelton Lewis. But unfortunately, those two guys are the day-to-day guys. They got little nagging injuries or whatever. They're quote-unquote day-to-day. And behind those guys, you got maybe a Brandon Strozier that's got a little bit of experience, not very much. And the rest are rolling out there going to be true freshmen.
Yeah.
Past that, which, Ashton Hampton, measurables are great. Good reviews out of fall camp. But again, how much do you want to put on a true freshman? So safety, we're deep. Linebacker, we're deep. Defensive tackle, crazy deep there. But if I had to talk about our defense, those two kind of position groups, the depth is what worries me a little bit there.
What's that freshman linebacker y'all got that Georgia was going after too?
Sammy
white guy. Yes, he going to play any year one?
Yes. I think he definitely plays year one. I think they're going to keep his role, somewhat limited. Obviously, we got Barrett Carter, could have went pro, came back. You got Wade Woodaz, who's just kind of a freaky dude. But he is dead. Sammy Brown is definitely going to get in on the rotation. He'll obviously, like Dabo likes to do, he'll be a starter on special teams.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that guy, he's too good. Physically, I mean, he looks like, some of your best linebackers in the country physically.
Yeah.
Now we'll see, kind of how linebacker tends to be somewhat of a tougher position sometimes, especially in Clemson's defense. They ask that, that middle linebacker guy, the inside linebackers, they ask them to do a lot. So we'll see what, how far mentally he can come and grasp it in the defense and being comfortable there. But physically, I don't think you could keep that dude off the field. He's just physically ready to go on the field.
Yeah, Georgia. I know Georgia wanted him bad, and it talked about wide receiver being the position where Georgia probably misses the most in recruiting or whatever. Inside linebacker is the exact opposite. Like they pretty much get who they want, and they went after him hard. So he must be Georgia saw something in him, so he's probably a good one.
Yeah, I think he probably ends up being one of the greats before he leaves Clemson. So I'm excited to see what his role is heading into the season and what kind of role he can carve out. But I get you don't keep people like that off the field. Like, there's just certain freshmen that come in that regardless of how deep you are at a position group, they're just going to force their way on the field. A guy like Peter Woods did that last year at the defensive tackle position. We were very deep there. He just forced his way on the field because he's just that good.
Right.
And then Sammy Brown, I think, is another one of those guys that just you're going to be forced to put him on the field. So, but yeah, thanks for coming on, Lou. I really appreciate it.
It was fun. I apologize again for being a little late.
No, absolutely. I completely understand. Look, family comes first.
We normally don't eat that early, but my kids was going to the high school football game tonight, and it started at 7:30, and they wanted hot dogs and hamburgers. They had a couple of their friends over, and they wanted hot dogs and hamburgers before they went to the game. So I ended up doing that, and before I knew it, it was like 6:15, and I was like, shoot, let me try to hurry up and jump on this Clemson show. So I'm glad I made it on.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you coming on. It's funny, before I let you go off here, is you're the one that you're one of the first ones that I got introduced to when it comes to YouTube, college football YouTube community. It was like way back in like 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. And I didn't know, I grew up a college football fan, obviously, grew up a Clemson fan, but that's when I really got introduced to, and I think it was your season prediction videos that you do.
Oh yeah.
And I ran across one of those like back in, 2017 or 2018, somewhere in there. It's when I was like stationed up in New York, and I found you there. And then, I found Pete, and I found, Brian and Bobby Durkins, and, obviously found, all the rest of the people. But yeah, that's kind of how I got introduced to YouTube and the college football community here. So that was pretty cool.
It's a lot of fun on here. I have a similar story. I won't bore you with it, but at the same time, I saw an Alabama guy, and I was like, well, what? There's people on YouTube talking college football? Like, okay, like I talk college football all the time. I can do that, so same kind of thing. Yeah. And 10 years for me, I just hit 10 years on here. So it's been a hell of a ride, man. I enjoy it every single day. I have a blast. I've met some great people. You mentioned a couple of them, but some of my best friends in my life right now are people that I only know because of this whole YouTube thing. There's a lot of really good people in this community. I know I rub a lot of people the wrong way because of the sort of style and stuff that I have, but it's never personal for me. I love college football, and trash talk has always been a part of college football for me and my friends growing up. You'll appreciate this. I live on the border of South Carolina, and it's crawling with Gamecock fans over there. Aiken, South Carolina, North Augusta, crawling. Yeah. And I became really good friends with a lot of those people. But 1 week a year, that Georgia South Carolina game, it was war between us and them. And we'd get together every year. And if we didn't watch another game together, we'd watch the Georgia South Carolina game together every year. And we'd sit there and we'd trash talk each other and each other's teams and all that. And it trash talk and college football are interwoven to me. So.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, I'm sure there's a lot of people. I'm not even looking. I can't even look at the comments when I do these shows on other channels because people got a lot that they like to type that they would never say in real life to somebody's face. But it's never personal for me. I love college football. I love college football fans. Yeah. I don't hate your team or anybody else's team. It's just, I'm passionate and I enjoy the back and forth and sort of the argumentative nature of college football. And I really appreciate you having me on. I had a great time. I'd do it again tomorrow. I'd do it anytime. So
yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely have to have you back on. I don't want to keep you too long. I'm sure you got stuff to do. I could sit here and talk college football all night, but I appreciate your channel. The trash talk is just, it's same for me. It's a part of college football. I enjoy it. I never take it personal. Not that there's never been a video I'm like, man, this mother, this,
right. I get it.
But it's all in good fun, it's fun to poke fun at other teams and all of that stuff. And I just think all the people that I've been introduced to in the college football community, you, Pete, Brian over on Clemson Football Live, Mark here at the Voice of College Football that gave me an opportunity on this channel, because it was people like you that, I'd watch and I watched it for years and years, and I was like, why don't I just and I would call in and, we'd have good conversation. I'd be like, why don't I just, try it? And then, back in, what was it, 2021, I started making videos on my channel. And it's hard to get traction on YouTube,
That's
especially
the hardest. Deciding to do it and just doing it. That's the hardest. The first step is the hardest. Once you start doing it,
yeah.
You get better and better and better. People tell me all the time, what camera do I need? What mic do I need? What this, what that? I said, look, man, just start making, if you have a phone, just start making videos. I said, it don't matter how much money you go out and spend on equipment. Your first 50 or so videos are going to be terrible either way, because you don't know what you're doing. Like, just start doing it. I promise absolutely. You will learn the ropes. It's a learn as you go business. YouTube, what thumbnails work, what doesn't work, what topics work, what doesn't, how many live shows versus how many uploads. Just start doing it, man. That's the hard. I'm no expert, so I'm in no position to give anybody advice. But people ask me all the time, and I tell them, start making videos. That's the best advice I can give you. Start doing it, because as soon as you start doing it, you're going to kick yourself for not starting yesterday. Last week. So yeah. It's been a lot of fun, man.
Yeah. Start making videos and don't get discouraged, because when I was on my channel, my YouTube channel, it didn't grow a ton. I mean, there still may be my YouTube channel over there may have 20 subscribers. I don't upload videos over there anymore. But that first season, I kind of I did little previews, and then I talk about it after the game. And, that's kind of how I got my feet wet. And then Mark reached out, on this channel, just kind of a community post, and was like, hey, looking for Clemson guys to come on and do stuff. And that's kind of how it came. And then, Jordan came along, and we had a couple other guys with me, and they kind of fell off organically. And we kind of created a chemistry, and we do this show every week. And, we do live post-game reactions and all that. And it just kind of happens organically. And that's, you just live and learn. And like you say, learn what works along the way. And the biggest thing is just consistently doing it. And eventually you break through and you get a good little audience, and it's fun, man. I don't care if 10 people were on here watching me. I'd still be on here talking about Clemson football and college football, because I'm just that passionate about it.
Yeah, man. Look, when I started 10 years ago, there were no live shows. You couldn't live stream. It was just uploaded videos. I did videos for 2 years straight before I ever got to 500 subscribers. I mean, it took me forever to get any traction at all. But yeah, you can't give up. You just got to keep. You got to make every video like nobody's watching or 1 million people are watching, and you got to do the same thing either way. Just be yourself. Be who you are. People are going to watch or they don't. Don't change to try to suit some certain group or another.
Yep.
Be you. Be who you are, and the people will come, and you're seeing that now. So, but keep up the good work, man. You're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. We'll have you on again sometime, hopefully in the near future. I really do appreciate your time, and I look forward to the next time we can do it. And I'll be on the Patreon streams this year.
Oh yeah, we have a good time over there for sure. All right, buddy. Good luck to Clemson this year, except for week 1. Have a good morning.
I second that. Good luck to your Bulldogs, except for week 1. We're coming for you, Lou. We're coming for you, Bulldogs. And we're somehow gonna make it happen. We'll see if I could speak that into existence, if you will. But yeah, thanks for Lou for coming out and chopping it up with us about Clemson and Georgia and week 1 and how we see everything going. I hope you guys enjoyed that conversation between me and Lou. That was a lot of fun. Been looking to get him on the show for a while now, and he was gracious enough to give us about an hour of his time. So really do appreciate that. That'll do it for the show tonight, guys. I'm going to get into the comment section here and maybe get 1 or 2 comments, but we are 2 hours in, and we need to shut it down here shortly. So if you guys got any comments or questions, I'll give you a couple minutes to get those comments or questions in, and then we're going to kind of shut the show down. Really do appreciate you guys. We still got 34 people in the live chat right now. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you have not already. Me and Jordan do the All In Show every Friday at 5:30 p.m. We also are going to do previews for every single game this season, and we will do live post-game reactions for every single Clemson game this season. Also, a couple announcements for the Clemson channel. We will be looking at moving this show to another time, from this time to another day, from Friday to another day, just trying to get it a little bit earlier in the week so that it's not right up against game day, if me and Jordan can work it out for the schedule. So stay tuned for that announcement. We're going to create some tiered memberships for the channel, probably 3 tiers. So if you guys got some catchy names that you would like us to name the tiers, put that in the comment section below. We'd love to hear your guys' ideas on that. And then also don't forget to support the Voice of College Football as a whole, all the different team channels they have, and most importantly, Mark Rogers, the main channel, the guy that gives us the opportunity to have this channel. So support that. Use the Amazon link. Go check out Uncle Lou. Everybody knows who Uncle Lou is. You can Google him or search him on YouTube. Crazy Uncle Lou. He's got Patreon, so go support him over there. He's got a Twitter account and everything like that. Here are the links for you guys, so go ahead and grab them off the chat. Show Uncle Lou support. Tell him thank you for helping us out tonight and give us a little insight on the Georgia Bulldogs heading into our week 1 matchup with them. Jackson Johnson says Howard rocks tier. Yeah, we were thinking about that one. So, yeah, thank you. That's a good one. Appreciate that. And we'll think of a few more if you guys think of them after we get out of here. John Sarin said, you guys going to continue to have guests. You might look into ROC boys football. They do a good job whenever talking about Clemson. Yeah, we will. We're always looking to have guests on when it makes sense for the show and stuff like that. So thank you for that suggestion. We'll hopefully reach out to them in the future, and when our schedules line up and when a topic interesting enough for us to kind of collab on something, we'll definitely do that. I appreciate that that suggestion, John, and thank you for showing up and supporting the channel tonight. You can have another tier with Tiger Rag or something with Dabo. Yeah, we were thinking about that. Pronounce Rock Boys. Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Michigan fan, but he's good. Yeah, I've ran across some of their videos. So yeah, I'd definitely love to have them on and kind of do a joint show or a collab with them. That'd be really cool. No, this is not a new time. We just got started a little bit late tonight. Uncle Lou got tied up, so he came on a little bit later, and Jordan wasn't able to do the show tonight. So that's kind of how that went. Tiger Paul Craven, if you and Jordan you want some guest suggestions, let me know, and I'll make sure I can send those suggestions to you. Yeah, absolutely. We'll definitely get with you, Jackson, and get that from you. That'd be great. Jason Priester, yes, we would love to have Jason Priester on. We'll have to reach out to him. Jordan is doing fine, guys. He's just he had a family thing come up that he had to go help out with. But don't worry, everything's fine. Jordan's fine. His family's fine. He just had something he had to take care of tonight. So I appreciate you guys worrying about him. But he is 100% good to go. Hated that he couldn't be here tonight, but he's more important things to take care of tonight. Yeah, Jason would be absolutely. Love to have Jason Priester on. Love his stuff. Love what he does over there on his Monday show. Go check out his Monday show if you guys don't already. He does a live Monday show where he just kind of answers the chat's questions over on Clemson Insider, the YouTube channel over there. So go check him out over there. He always does a great job, Jason Priester over there. And he's got some more inside information than me and Jordan does because he gets to go to practices when they have media availability, and he gets to be in the media rooms asking questions directly to the players and the coaches. So he gets a little bit more inside stuff than we do. Changing the time of day, no surprise at all. I know. I'm sorry. Again, it's not a guarantee that we're going to change it. We're talking about it. I just wanted to, I figured I'd let you guys know that we're thinking about it. Tiger Tom, in my opinion, Friday is not the best day for your show. Thursday is a better time. Yeah. We're looking into that. So again, more to follow on that. Dylan Spell says, I listen to all those guys as well as the Morgan Thomas show and Brian Knight. Yeah, we just had Brian on last week. That was a great episode. We'll have him on again, no doubt. We'll have Uncle Lou on again. Hopefully we can get Jason Priester on. Morgan Thomas, hopefully we can get him on as well. I haven't seen him post a video in a while. Hope he's doing well. I'm sure he's just busy with life. We all have stuff going on. So I look forward to seeing some of his videos this fall, and hopefully we can get him on the show at some point in time. David Wood votes Thursday at 6. We'll see. We'll see if that lines up. Again, there's my schedule, there's Jordan's schedule, so we gotta line those stuff up. I got a lot going on with my daughter and softball and stuff like that. So Orange Blood has said the Rob and Kale show is hilarious. I watch that every now and then. I wish Clemson was playing in Ireland instead of FSU. As long as we weren't sacrificing the home game, I wouldn't hate seeing Clemson play in Ireland. But here's the show for that we did with Brian last episode, All In Show, episode 82. So check that out if you missed it. We had about an hour conversation with Brian, and it was a ton of fun. Love that guy. He's hilarious. His Bobby Durkins character he does is awesome. Check out. He just did a season preview for Clemson as the Bobby Durkins character. So go check out that. It's pretty funny if you guys like that character he does over there. What will be the time next week? This time. Unless otherwise posted on the community tab, it will be this time, Dylan. So do not worry. If we make any changes, it will be posted in the community tab, but we do not plan on making changes right now. Just simply talking about it and getting your guys' opinion on it as well, because you guys are as big as part of the show as we are. So obviously bringing you guys in the loop is important to us as well. Get a couple of players on. Peter Woods, excuse me, $1 Million Mullet, a.k.a. Sammy Brown, and Wesco. That'd be great. The only problem with getting players on is I think you have to go through Clemson's SID, and it has to be approved through them. So I don't know the process of that. Maybe that's something we can look into in the future. I'd love to have players on and talk to them. That'd be great. So maybe that's something we look to in the future and figure out what that process is like. I don't know if you have to be media credentialed in order to get through that process or what, but certainly something we can look into. Would probably have to pay them. Yeah, that's a possibility as well, that you would. So, all right, guys, we've been on for 2 hours and 11 minutes. Thank you so much for showing up tonight and hanging out with me. I wasn't sure that Lou was going to make it. He finally did. Thank you guys for supporting the show as you always do, getting into the comment section, hitting that like button for us, and just overall supporting the channel with your presence. It's greatly appreciated. Can't wait till next week. Next week, me and Jordan will be previewing the Georgia game, breaking it down in depth and giving our score predictions and all of that stuff. So I can't wait to see you guys 5:30 next Friday right here for the All In Show. And we will just be a short few hours away from kickoff against Georgia. Can't wait for it. Hope you guys are as excited as me. Enjoy week 0, and let's get ready for the Tigers to roll week 1, August 31st, against the Georgia Bulldogs. And as always, go Tigers.